Have you ever looked up at the night sky and wondered where everybody is? People look at the stars and think, surely out there in all that vastness there is someone else. And maybe they are building ships, pointing them at our little blue dot and coming over to say hello. It is a beautiful thought. But today, I want to tell you the hard, undeniable truth about why an alien spacecraft is never, ever going to land on this planet. It is not a matter of technology. It is not about building a better engine or finding a smarter way to steer. It is a matter of the fundamental laws of nature. The universe has rules, absolute rules, that cannot be broken by us, and they cannot be broken by them, no matter how 1,000,000 years of evolution might have made them clever. We watch movies where ships zip between star systems like they are taking a bus across town. But the space between stars is not a road. It is a terrifying, unimaginable ocean of nothingness. And nature has set a strict, unforgiving speed limit on everything inside it. The speed of light. That is nearly 300,000 kilometers per second. It sounds incredibly fast until you realize how impossibly far away even our closest neighbors really are. Before we go deeper into the absolute limits of reality, do me a favor. If you enjoy taking the universe apart to see how it really works, subscribe to the channel. It tells me you want to keep exploring. Now, let us imagine an alien civilization trying to cross that dark ocean. They are going to hit a wall. Not a wall of stone, but a wall of pure physics. A wall made of energy, mass, and time. And I am going to show you exactly why that wall is impossible to break. Let us start by understanding the sheer sizes of our cosmic neighborhood. When we look up, stars look like they are painted on the ceiling of the night sky. Aye, they look like they are sitting right next to each other. But that is an illusion. Space is exactly that. Space. An unimaginably massive emptiness. To really grasp why an alien visitor cannot just pop over, I need you to feel the distance. Think about light. Light is the fastest thing in the universe. It travels at almost 300,000 kilometers per second. Snap your fingers. Split second, a beam of light just circled the entire Earth 7 times. It is impossibly fast. Now, imagine that beam of light traveling not for a second, but for a whole minute, then an hour, then a day, then let it travel without stopping for an entire year. The distance that light covers in that single year is what we call a light year. It is roughly 10 trillion kilometers. Human brains are not really built to picture a trillion of anything. So let us just stick to the idea of the light year. Our closest stellar neighbor is a star called Proxima Centauri. It is just over 4 light years away. That means if you shine a powerful laser pointer at it, that beam of light takes over 4 years of traveling at absolute maximum speed just to get there. Suppose an advanced alien civilization lives right next door, right there, at Proxima Centauri, and suppose they want to visit us. They cannot travel at the speed of light. Nothing with mass can do that. We will get to that ironclad rule later. For now, let us say they build a ship and use something like the fastest technology humans have ever built. Think about our Voyager space probes. We launched them out into the dark decades ago. They are currently hurtling away from our solar system at over 60,000 kilometers per hour. That is vastly faster than a speeding rifle bullet. At that incredible speed, how long do you think it would take to travel to our very closest neighbor? 100 years? 1,000? It would take more than 70,000 years. Think about that for a moment. 70,000 years ago, human beings were wearing animal skins and figuring out how to use stone tools. If an alien ship left its home world when we were living in caves, traveled at our fastest speeds, they would only just be arriving now. And that is just from the star right next door. The galaxy itself is over 100,000 light years across. The distances are simply crushing. But you might say to me, surely an advanced alien race would figure out how to build a much faster engine. They would not travel at a crawl. They would just step on the gas. This is where we hit the first real wall of physics. It is a concept that traps every engineer, human or alien, who ever looked at the stars. If you want to go faster in the vacuum of space, you need to push harder. To push harder, you need to throw mass out the back of your ship. In other words, you need fuel. Imagine you are going on a long road trip across the country. But there is a catch. There are no gas stations along the way. None at all. You have to carry every single drop of gasoline you will need for the entire journey right from the start. So you hook up a massive trailer filled with gasoline behind your car. But now you have a new problem. Your car is incredibly heavy. The engine has to work twice as hard just to get moving. Because it is working harder, it burns gas much faster. So you realize you need a second trailer of gas just to move the first trailer of gas. But now the car is even heavier. You need a third trailer just to pull the second one. Do you see the trap? Every pound of fuel you add makes the ship heavier, which means you need more fuel to push the fuel you just packed. It is an endless, vicious cycle. In physics, we call this the rocket equation. It is absolutely merciless. If an alien ship wants to cross the galaxy at high speeds using any kind of normal fuel, the amount of fuel they would need becomes larger than the mass of the entire universe. It is a physical impossibility. So they cannot use rockets. They have to find another way. And that leads us down an even darker, stranger path into how the universe actually protects its speed limit. So, we left our alien friends stuck with a massive fuel problem. But I know exactly what you are thinking. You are saying to me, Richard, these are aliens. They are 1,000,000 years ahead of us. They do not use gasoline. They do not use chemical rockets. They certainly do not drag giant fuel tanks behind them. They have figured out something better. They use antimatter They use perfect energy conversion. They have harnessed the power of artificial black holes. All right, I will play along. Let us give them a perfect engine. Let us imagine an engine that converts matter entirely into pure, brilliant thrust with absolute efficiency. The fuel problem is completely solved. They turn the key, they step on the gas, and their ship starts accelerating 10,000 kilometers a second. 50,000. They are cruising through the dark, but nature is sitting there, watching them. And nature has a magnificent, terrible trap, waiting for anything that tries to cheat its limits. Early in the 20th century, Albert Einstein figured out a very strange secret about how our universe is woven together. He realized that energy and mass are not two completely different things. They are the exact same thing, just wearing different masks. If you give an object energy, you also give it mass. The more energy an object has, the heavier it becomes. This happens to us here on Earth, but the effect is so tiny, we never notice it. When you get up and run down the street, you possess kinetic energy, the energy of motion, because you have more energy running than you do standing perfectly still. You are technically a tiny, microscopic bit heavier when you are running. But our aliens are going fast, really fast. They are pouring unimaginable, star-crushing amounts of energy into their ship to push it closer and closer to the speed limit of light. And because energy is mass, all that energy being pumped into the ship's motion is physically making the ship heavier. The faster they go, the heavier the ship becomes. The heavier the ship becomes, the harder it is to push. So their perfect engine has to pump out even more energy to keep accelerating, which makes the ship even heavier. It is a beautiful and terrifying cosmic joke. By the time you get to 99% of the speed of light, your ship is so incredibly massive that you would need the energy of entire galaxies just to push it a tiny fraction faster. You can never reach the ultimate speed limit because you would become infinitely heavy, requiring infinite energy. The universe simply bolts the door. So, the aliens realize this. They are smart. They say, fine, we will not try to go at the speed of light. We will settle for 20% of the speed of light. That is about 60,000 kilometers every single second. It will take them 20 or 30 years to reach Earth from their star system, but they are patient. But here is where the mystery deepens. The reality of space travel becomes incredibly violent. We like to think of space as a perfect, clean vacuum. Nothing but empty dark. But that is an illusion. Space is actually filled with loose hydrogen atoms, tiny grains of rock, and microscopic dust. When you are sitting still, a hydrogen atom bumping into you is nothing. It is a ghost. But remember, speed changes everything. It is not just about how heavy an object is, it is about how fast you smash into it. Imagine driving down the highway at 100 kilometers an hour and putting your hand out the window. The air pushes back. Now imagine flying in a jet at 1,000 kilometers an hour. That same air feels like a solid wall of concrete. Now put our alien ship moving at 60,000 kilometers a second. At that spectacular speed, a single grain of sand floating in the void does not just scratch the paint. It hits the hull of the ship with the explosive force of a military bomb. Stray pebble hits with the devastating power of a nuclear weapon, and they are not just hitting one pebble. Every single second of their journey, they are flying blindly through a storm of invisible shrapnel. Their ship would need armor hundreds of meters thick just to survive the crossing. What happens to armor when you make it thicker? It gets heavier. And what happens when the ship gets heavier? We are right back in the very first trap. So they cannot go fast and they cannot go slow. But what if they try to warp space itself? So we have established they cannot simply blast their way through the dark. The fuel traps them. The mass crushes them. Cosmic dust tears them to shreds. But science fiction has taught us to be clever. People come up to me and they say, "Richard, you are thinking too small. Advanced aliens would not fly through space. They would cheat. They would warp space itself. They would build a wormhole." Is a beautiful idea. If you cannot break the speed limit on the highway, why not just fold the map? Imagine a long rug stretching across a long room. You are a little bug sitting at one end of the rug, and you want to get to the apple at the exact opposite end. You can walk step by tiny step, which will take a very long time. Or, if you are strong enough, you can grab the fabric of the rug, bunch it up, and pull the apple right to your feet. You never actually walked the distance. You just shrunk the space between you and your destination. This is the concept behind a warp drive. You compress the space in front of your ship and expand the space behind it. The ship sits in a little bubble of normal space, perfectly safe, not accelerating at all, while the universe moves around it. Because the ship itself is not moving through space faster than light, it never gets infinitely heavy. It dodges the trap. But I am telling you right now, the universe is not a rug. To bend it like one requires something that shatters the mind. To warp space, you need gravity. We know how normal gravity works. It pulls things together. The earth pulls the moon. The sun pulls the... If you want to compress in front of your ship, normal gravity will do the job perfectly. You just need the mass of a whole star stuffed into the nose of your spacecraft. But what about the space behind the ship? To make the bubble move, you have to push space apart behind you. You need a kind of gravity that repels. You need something physicists call exotic matter or negative mass. This is where the dream falls apart. I want you to imagine I hand you a bowling ball made of negative mass. It looks normal, but it disobeys every law of common sense. You place it on a table and push it away from you. It does not roll away. The harder you push it away, the faster it accelerates backward, right into your hand. If you drop it, it does not fall to the floor. It falls up, smashing into the ceiling. It is completely absurd. And the truth is, we have never found a single atom of negative mass anywhere in the universe. It works on a mathematician's chalkboard, but reality seems to forbid it from existing. But let us play the game again. Let us give the aliens this magical negative mass. They build their warp bubble. They fold the rug. They take a shortcut across the galaxy. Here is where we hit the paradox. The universe has a final, ultimate law that protects its speed limit. Space and time are not two different things. They are the exact same fabric. Space-time. If you build a shortcut through space, you have automatically, mathematically, built a shortcut through time. If our aliens use a warp drive to fly here faster than light, their ship becomes a time machine. It is unavoidable. Imagine they arrive here on Earth. They immediately send a radio message back to their home planet saying, "We made it safely." Because of the twisting of space-time, depending on how they moved, that radio message could arrive back at their home world years before they ever launched the ship. They could receive a message from the future telling them not to go. And if they decide not to go, then who sent the message? The universe abhors a paradox. It refuses to let causes happen after effects. If you drop a glass, it shatters. The glass cannot shatter before you drop it. If you allow faster than light travel, you allow effects to happen before their causes. You break logic itself. Reality would unravel. The universe bolts the door. You cannot go through space faster than light, and you cannot cheat by folding it. So what is left? What if the aliens just accept reality? What if they decide to take the slow route and travel for 1,000,000 years? So, the door is bolted on speed, the door is bolted on shortcuts. The aliens are trapped by the same laws of physics that trap us, but they are determined. They say to themselves, if we cannot cross the ocean in a single day, we will build a floating island and cross it in 1,000,000 years. They decide to build a generation ship, a colossal vessel, a completely self-sustaining artificial world. They put 1,000,000 of their best people inside, pack it with a perfect ecosystem, point it at Earth. The idea is that the great-great-great-grandchildren of the original crew will be the ones who actually arrive to say hello. Sounds like a practical brute force solution. But this is where I am going to break your brain, because physics is not the only absolute law of the universe. Biology and entropy have their own ruthless rules. I want you to think about 1,000,000 years. Really think about it. 1,000,000 years ago, human beings did not exist. We were still early primates wandering the savannah, just barely figuring out how to stand on 2 legs. Our brains were a fraction of the size they are now. We did not have language. We did not have fire. Now, imagine locking a group of living creatures inside a metal box and floating them through the dead of space for that exact same amount of time. Evolution does not stop just because you are on a spaceship. In fact, inside a closed, artificial environment, evolution does something brutal and completely unpredictable. The environment inside that ship is going to forcefully dictate what the species becomes. If they live in lower gravity, their bones will thin out and their muscles will waste away. If they live under artificial light, their eyes will physically change. But it is much deeper and more dangerous than that deep space is flooded with cosmic radiation. High energy particles are constantly tearing through the hull of the ship, striking the DNA of the passengers. Over thousands of generations, this radiation causes continuous microscopic mutations, errors in the genetic code. Most of those errors are fatal, but some survive, and in a tiny, isolated population locked in a box, genetic drift takes absolute control. The gene pool becomes a closed loop. We have a foundational rule in physics called entropy. It states that everything in the universe slowly decays from order into chaos. Machines break down, energy dissipates, data gets corrupted. And biology is no exception to the rule of entropy. By the time that ship has traveled for 100,000 years, let alone 1,000,000, the creatures inside will have mutated into something entirely different from the brilliant engineers who launched the vessel. They will not look like the original aliens. They will not think like them. But here is the truly terrifying part. Think about their minds. Think about their culture. How long does a human civilization last before it forgets its own history? The Roman Empire collapsed after a few hundred years. We cannot even read some languages written just 3,000 years ago on our own planet. Inside that generation ship, the original mission to reach Earth would become a vague myth after 100 generations. After 1,000 generations, the myth would be forgotten entirely. The ship itself would become their entire universe. They would not look out the windows because the stars outside never seem to move. To them, the metal walls of the ship are the absolute, unquestionable boundaries of reality. If they ever actually arrive at Earth, the creatures stepping out of that ship would not be the proud explorers who left their home world. They would be the bizarre, mutated, primitive descendants of a forgotten civilization, arriving at a destination they do not even know they were aiming for. They might have completely forgotten how to operate the ship's engines or fix its life support. They would just be trapped passengers inside a rotting, million-year-old museum. The original aliens did not beat the vastness of space. Space beat them. It swallowed their time, their biology, and their purpose. They built a magnificent ship to reach the stars, but all they really built was a very slow, incredibly expensive tomb. So, biology and time destroy the generation ship. But what if they are truly advanced? What if they take biology out of the equation completely and send machines? So we rule out the flesh and blood The aliens look at the immense, terrifying gulf of space, and they say, let us send our mechanical children. Let us send artificial intelligence. Let us build probes made of titanium, tungsten, and silicon. Machines do not breathe oxygen. They do not need to eat, and they certainly do not mutate or forget their mission. You can turn off their main power. Let them sleep completely frozen in the dark for 1,000,000 years. Just set an internal alarm clock to wake them up when they finally reach our solar system. It sounds like a perfect, flawless solution. But I want to remind you of our old absolute enemy, entropy. The universe does not just break down living biology, it breaks down absolutely everything. Remember that cosmic radiation I told you about? High energy particles, born from exploding stars, are tearing through the vacuum of space at nearly the speed of light. They are not just bad for living DNA, they are entirely disastrous for computer brains. When a cosmic ray hits a microscopic silicon chip, it carries enough energy to physically change a tiny switch inside the computer. It can literally flip a 1 to a 0. We deal with this on Earth right now with our satellites. We call it a bit flip. Over a journey of hundreds of thousands of years, the mechanical brain of this alien probe is going to get absolutely bombarded. Millions of tiny microscopic impacts. Its core programming is degrading. Its memory is fragmenting. By the time that machine actually arrives, its artificial mind might be completely scrambled. It might wake up insane, entirely forgetting why it was launched in the first place. What about the physical body of the ship? Even floating at absolute zero, atomic structures naturally degrade over deep time. Metals become brittle. Protective coatings turn to dust. Any moving parts fuse together. After 1,000,000 years, a machine is not a pristine marvel of engineering anymore. It is just highly sophisticated space junk. But let us pretend they somehow bypass entropy. Let us say they build a truly indestructible machine with a perfect, unbreakable diamond computer brain. Here is the physical reality of trying to shoot a bullet across the galaxy. When you look up at the night sky, the stars seem perfectly fixed in place, but that is an illusion. Everything is moving, and it is moving violently fast. Our entire solar system is orbiting the center of the Milky Way galaxy at over 800,000 kilometers an hour. The alien star system is also moving at completely different speeds and on a completely different trajectory. Imagine you are standing on a playground merry-go-round that is spinning out of control. I am standing on another merry-go-round miles away, also spinning. The ground beneath us is moving too. You have a rifle and you want to shoot a tiny target sitting on my shoulder, but your bullet is so incredibly slow that it will take 100 years to reach me. You cannot aim at where I am right now. You have to calculate exactly where I will be 100 years from this exact second, factoring in the rotation of my merry-go-round, the movement of the tectonic plates, and every gust of wind in between. Now, stretch that impossibly complex math to 1,000,000 years. Over 1,000,000 years, stars drift wildly. The gravity from invisible, passing black holes pulls things off course. A fraction of a single degree of error on the day they launch means missing our entire solar system by billions of kilometers at the end of the trip. But here is the absolute hardest truth. Let us say they do everything perfectly. The indestructible machine fires exactly on target, survives the 1,000,000-year journey, and drops safely into orbit right around Earth. Here is the real heartbreaking tragedy of the cosmos. Time itself, the universe, is nearly 14 billion years old. Human beings have only had radio technology for about a single century, 1 century out of 14 billion years. That is not even a blink of an eye. It is a microscopic fraction of a blink. If that alien machine arrived 100 million years ago, it would have found a planet ruled by dinosaurs. If it arrived 2 billion years ago, it would have found nothing but green,